Okay, here we go. Nice and quiet.
Sound speeds, camera rolling.
Holding for sound.
Last looks. Calling for last looks.
And set and action.
I need to swap batteries.
You know, making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
Welcome to Making Movies is Hard, the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I am Alrik Brissell, the founding host of the podcast. I've been crewing up on sets for over 10 years. I've made dozens of films, shorts and features, either as a producer or a director, and I'm just finishing up my very first feature as a writer-director called The Alternate.
I'm Liz Manischel. I'm a writer, director, producer with 2 features under my belt and a third one. You know, maybe it'll happen at some point. Who knows? I am also a former film critic, a current distribution consultant, and I used to manage the creative distribution initiative at Sundance.
This week, we have filmmaker and director Chelsea Christer on the show to talk about making her first feature documentary, Bleeding Audio, and the journey to getting the film made and how she navigated her festival journey to land at Slamdance and actually win the George Stark Spirit of Slamdance Award, which is super awesome. We also talk about why Chelsea made a documentary over a fiction feature and how she plans to make the leap from documentary feature to fiction feature director. We're going to jump right into the interview, but don't go anywhere because we also have director Leena Pendharkar, maybe, I don't know, on the show to talk about her brand new short film called Awaken, starring Parminder Nagra of ER fame, and of course, we all know her from Bend It Like Beckham, which she was amazing in, of course. And we'll also do another installment of the You've Got Mail segment and catch up on some mail YouTube comments, as we normally do. But without any more pontification, here's our conversation with Chelsea.
Chelsea, thank you for joining us. Can you give us the elevator pitch for Bleeding Audio?
Absolutely. So Bleeding Audio is a music documentary that follows the rise, fall, and rise of the band The Matches. We use their story to dig a little deeper into how the music industry has changed in the new digital landscape, but also how the community that music creates is kind of what's keeping our bands alive today.
And then how many days did you shoot the film?
I literally have no idea. A lot. We have 55 interviews that I actually shot for the film. I think like 38 of them ended up making the final cut. And then we filmed every single reunion show. So a lot. And then I filmed a bunch of stuff of the band actually recording new music, and not a frame of that went in the film. So
wow.
Bonus features for
documentary
distribution.
stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can you speak to the rough budget? And if just tell us what you can.
I can get my bank account statement from like 5 years ago and tell you what the difference is from then and now. But what I will tell you is that we did have 2 Kickstarter campaigns that were successfully funded by the amazing community of Matches fans and people who have followed me in my work over the years. And we raised, I believe, about $88,000 through the 2 campaigns collectively.
Wow. How long did you spend working on the film from, starting it to releasing it?
So I would argue that the first shoot for the film was March 4th, 2014. That's when I was doing promotional videos for the band themselves and started to realize that there was something bigger happening. But the actual first treatment I wrote in July of 2014, and our first Kickstarter went up in August of 2014, and we started filming their reunion shows in November of 2014. And then we printed the final cut February 2020.
Wow.
There are so many sub questions in that that we will get to. I promise. Why am I promising? I hope that we'll get to them. How big was your crew?
Well, a lot of it is, crew of one. And often I would work with DPs that I've worked with over the years on corporate content. I would say that there were 3 major contributing DPs over the course of the 6 years that I worked on it. And then a number of camera operators who supported me on days when my primary folks were unavailable. And then, there's 2 editors. We had a series of producers. Currently, the producer who helped me carry it across the finish line and also helped carry me across the finish line is Aaron Persley. So yeah,
Wow.
a mix.
I have a sub question I'm going to ask about that is
We can't
on
ask
your
the sub questions yet.
I
What are you
have to
doing?
ask a sub question. So on your biggest day, what was your biggest crew?
Oh,
3
That's germane.
people, 4 people,
3?
maybe 3 or
Wow.
4 people.
So you didn't have like 4 cameras shooting the shows or anything like that and all this stuff?
No, it was usually just one
Wow.
camera guy and me. I also shot a lot of the documentary myself.
Wow.
Documentary filmmaking.
Yeah.
All right.
I had to ask this question. Damn.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Compared to all
your
the other
question.
projects you've made, how difficult was this one to make?
Is there a scale? Is there like a
Yeah.
scale of
It's a definite binary system, of course.
out of all the projects that I've ever made, this is the most difficult thing I've probably ever done in my whole life is get this thing done. It took 6.5 years. So,
Wow.
you know,
Nice.
I want to know what you like. What you've said this like 30 times. I'm sure everyone is going to ask this question. You were shooting promotional material for the band. You realized there was a bigger story. What gave you the confidence that there was something bigger that was worth investing time and energy into it?
yeah, that's a great question. These guys are in my inner circle. I've known them for a really long time. So I knew them all as characters. And I feel like when you're a filmmaker, you kind of distill all the people in your life down to characters because you're stealing parts of them for stuff that you're writing anyway. And so I knew all these guys very well, and I always found them to be really compelling. And I just knew them to be really good humans. And I've always loved their music. And I thought that I knew their whole story. And when I actually started doing these just promotional video interviews, I was just kind of getting like a rough retrospective of their career. And I've learned a lot more that I thought I knew. And it was really just things about, opportunities that had been presented to them, like the extreme amount of interest that they had, but also I knew the end of the story also. So I was learning about this whole middle part. That was something that I just had never known even as an insider. But also I've always been compelled by how the industry has shifted for artists and comparing it to my own career as a filmmaker and kind of looking to the music industry as, oh, hey, those are the red flags. And just kind of seeing how the music industry adapted, maybe not very well. And I felt like there was a bigger story to tell about a band I loved, about characters of these guys who I loved, while using that personal story to tell this bigger one of this sort of like beating drum of how the industry shifted and how that was a big contributor to what took them out in the end.
Wow. Like the thing that I keep on going back to from what you said earlier is why would you shoot 55 interviews? That's a lot of interviews for a movie.
I know. And that's the thing is I feel like the biggest reason is because I thought I was telling two stories, right? I was telling the matches story and I was telling the story about the music industry. And I knew I had these two like pie charts or Venn diagrams, if you will, of like people who knew the matches and supported their career, people who knew the music industry inside and out and could be, validating presences to like give that, story weight and credibility. And I overlapped those Venn diagrams and interviewed basically everybody instead of just focusing on the people in the middle. And what ended up happening in the film is, honestly, unintentionally, I used just about all the interviews. And it was in our test screenings where the people who were in the music industry expert category, those segments, people just weren't as connected to them because they loved the characters of the matches. They loved when people could tell anecdotal stories about them. And, finding that humanity is what gets people more engaged with a story, even if you're trying to kind of like signal something maybe a bit bigger. People who are just like experts just suddenly aren't quite as interesting, And so the experts that we knew could really drive the human story home were people who had a direct touch point with the matches. So like Mark Hoppus from Blink-182, Nick Hexum from 311, they're like rock star giants, but they also had this, one-on-one connection with developing the matches and witnessing their talent. So it added a layer of credibility for the band, but also like was able to bring that music industry weight that we were looking for. So part of it was like a little bit of green documentary filmmaker. Oh, let's just get everything, we're here. But another side of it was my original treatment was weighted more 60-40 in music industry and matches story, and it became more 80-20 in the end.
In the matches favor.
Yes.
So this is your first feature, am I right? And
yes.
Okay. And did you think your first feature was going to be a documentary? Did you, or are you, because I know you're working on other things, so I'd love to hear your perspective about genre.
Yeah, I definitely did not think my first feature would be a documentary. I thought my first feature would be a narrative. That was kind of my trajectory. My first short was a silent narrative. My second was a narrative that I had written and directed. And, I just naturally thought I'd move into scripted feature. But at the time, I was actually doing a ton of doc-styled work, brand documentaries and other things that gave me more of a comfort in the format. And so I think, too, for me, I had just wrapped my whole festival journey with my short film. And I was in that post-project depression, where you're like, what am I going to do next? What is my next project going to be? I fell in my lap in a way. And it was something that I knew that no one else was going to do it. And I also knew no one else was going to have the access to be able to tell this story. And so it kind of felt like I became this film's and this story's little champion and the torch holder along the way.
So how did you secure your interviews for the movie? Was it all through the matches contacts, or did you have to reach out to agents to get people? Like, how did that work?
So the matches provided me a spreadsheet of names and phone numbers and email addresses. And I went through and kind of qualified a few of them and made decisions and cuts. And then there were a few people who did require third-party connections. But I'll be honest, two of our biggest interviews, Cassidy Pope and Mark Hoppus, I called out on Twitter.
Oh, wow.
I literally, I remember it was really important to me to have a woman from that era that the matches were in speak to the industry at that time. And to be honest, pop punk wasn't very good to diversity. There weren't a lot of, people of color. There weren't a lot of women in that industry. So pickings were a little slim. And so I remember Cassidy Pope was a big Matches fan, and it was a band that the Matches had, Hey Monday was a band that the Matches had supported. So I just decided to reach out on Twitter and say, hey, I'm making a Matches doc. You wanna join in? And she said yes, instantly. And we worked with a third party group of people for her. And then with Mark Hoppus, I did actually have his email, which is why it's really funny. I had to go through Twitter. But I had a few people who had worked with Mark before who helped boost my little Twitter response to him. And it took a year to schedule the interview, but he eventually got on board.
Wow.
Can you talk a little bit about the festival run for the film and what that's been like? I mean, I know of some pretty exciting successes you've had, but.
No, thank you. Yeah. So we had our world premiere at CineQuest on March 7th, 2020.
Wow.
It was an in-person screening. It was also one of their last, because that same morning they announced that they were shutting the festival down the following Monday, and it was a Saturday. So our sold out screening ended up having a few, people who didn't show. In retrospect, 100% do not blame them. We had a really wonderful, magical night though. And by my understanding, no one got sick, which is amazing. But we had this beautiful screening at CineQuest, and then afterwards we had a little secret show at a bar around the corner. Had the Matches play, and we totally blew the minds of this brewery that we were at. It was wonderful, and it was great. And then everything shut down. And after working 6 years on something, it's it was tough. The pandemic hit me really hard. I believe the sentences I used were, hard work doesn't pay off and the universe has it out for me. And, things like that. Knowing that there were much bigger and worse things going on, but in my own little bubble, it was a very weird time. And ultimately, my producer Erin and I, we had, after a couple months of that, deep dark, we had our world premiere and now what? We decided to just have a sync and decide, hey, what do we want to do? Do we want to wait? Do we want to do virtual festivals? Because stuff was starting to pick up virtually. And I had a talk with a couple other filmmakers just asking, where are you guys at? What are you guys feeling? I wanted to understand, what the implications were going virtual, because at the time too, a lot of places were saying, distributors won't go after you if you do virtual release and, all these other big scary things. And the truth is when it boiled down to it, it was do you want to hold your career back another year? Or do you want to get your film out there and then get it so you can start making the next one? Because let me tell you, after working on something for 6 years, you really want to work on the next one too. You love this one. It is your baby, but you're ready for the next baby, right? And so we decided to go virtual and it was awesome. We did SF Doc Fest, we did Dances with Films, we did Sound Unseen, we did Denver Film Festival and Lake County Film Festival all in the fall of 2020. And we won awards at almost all of them, which was really amazing. We found out that we won the audience award at CineQuest when it was in person. We won the audience award at Dances with Films and also at SF Doc Fest. So it was, it felt really validating, and the virtual circuit was a way to engage a wider audience. But also as a music documentary, we kind of have a built-in fan base. And so we were also able to socialize our fans to independent film. And that was really exciting. Being able to talk to Match's fans who I've been engaged with for years working on this project, and having them geek out with me about the other films that they're watching, it just felt really cool to open them up to that, and they've also been hugely instrumental in helping us and supporting us through these festivals. And then we kind of thought, what's going to happen for 2021? Do we wrap it up? And then we found out that we got into Slamdance, and that was a huge, oh my God, the dream, that's one of those dream festivals. And we did Slamdance, and now we're kind of doing more festivals.
You won an award at Slamdance.
We did. We won the Spirit of Slamdance Award, which felt pretty cool. We're just going.
I have a follow-up to that. Sorry, Alrik.
Yeah.
But not sorry. So you're talking of it, as if it's almost happenstance that these festivals said yes, and that there's kind of a fluidity to it. But did you strategize? Were you we're going to apply to this festival, we're going to start our festival submissions in this month so that we have the best chance to get into, was there any kind of, tell me how you built this festival list?
Yeah, we had a strategy and it kind of went out the window because the festival timings all changed, Dances with Films and SF Doc Fest, that was going to be our summer experience, and it became our fall experience. The Denver Film Festival too, that was also going to be our winter closing out thing, and so we kind of had to throw strategy out the window. We had a bunch of festivals that we knew we felt very well aligned with, and we were strategic in where we submitted. But it just, a lot of the festivals that we submitted to and are still waiting to hear back from either canceled or are postponing until this fall. And so it's kind of a weird place where I still don't even know, the whole festival strategy that I had in my mind for, the years leading up to our, launch, it just vanished in a second because suddenly the timelines were all different. So it felt exciting to get Slamdance, but also felt weird because usually Slamdance is what kicks off your run, right? And it kind of came in the middle. And so now we're at this point where all the other films and filmmakers I've been talking to from the festival are gearing up and ramping up. And I'm we're kind of trying to ramp down, we're definitely still doing festivals, and we got some wonderful, beautiful invitations. post Slamdance. But yeah, it's like we're just kind of playing it by ear instead of being, instead of following the strategy that we had planned for so long. It's a very weird place to be in. As a planner, it's like I don't really know what's happening.
So are you like actively seeking distribution now? Or are you kind of waiting for the festival run to end before you start like actually trying to secure a deal?
I don't know if I can fully answer that right now.
Okay.
It's a little complicated, but we have had a little bit of interest, and we're hoping to secure distribution for a fall release. But we're kind of navigating a bit of a unique situation, and once that is resolved, we'll be able to kind of carry forward. But it should.
I'm dying to know now. This is so vague that I'm like more curious.
I'm really sorry. I literally like can't talk about it on a recorded thing, but I'm happy to talk about it afterwards. But basically, what I will say is, our goal is to have like a fall release, or right now we're trying to figure out like what the landscape is, right? Is because we keep being told by people in the know that all the studios are going to start releasing films in the fall. So it's going to be really competitive. So you want to try and get in on that like late summer, early fall release.
Yeah.
And that's something that we really want to do. But we also really strongly feel like our film deserves a theater experience. We really want to do an indie theater run where we can partner with the matches and do like actual live shows in partnership with a film screening. That has been a part of our, rollout plan since the start. And also the matches have started recording new music. And I would love to be able to release the film in partnership with a record release for them. I feel like strategically that makes sense for them and for us. And so that happening in the fall might be a little premature. So maybe a spring release, but I also want to have a distribution partner that like I can strategize with, and they can kind of help use their expertise, and I can use my expertise in the matches in our film to be able to find the right moment and the right strategy for this. Because I find that I mean, I've been in this world for 7 years now, and I know my film really well. But like, I'm still learning the industry landscape, and I'm still learning that market. And I do want to collaborate with someone who knows that very well. So I think in a distributor, what we are looking for is someone who can like help us craft something that has the impact that we want, but can also, be a great fit for the matches rollout in ours.
When we talk offline and you share all the good gossip that you're not sharing with us right now, I will also do a formal pitch to work with you, because that's literally what I do, is oversee distribution strategy. So whether we work together or not, you're just saying all these very exciting things, because filmmakers never want to get involved in distribution. And you're saying that your knowledge and your passion will only benefit the release of the film. And I think that's a fantastic perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to just be leveraged. I think that that's something that I care a lot about this film. And I really feel like the film's a conversation starter, and that's what I wanted it to be. Is, at first I wanted to get into the nitty gritty and the minutia of how the music industry has changed for artists and how we can, help support our artists to have more sustainable, lives, because really this film exemplifies that. It's like very hard for musicians to live a life, and I of course, when you're filling out grant paperwork too, you get real in your head about what your impact plan is, like documentary filmmakers have to know their impact plan. And I really, meant it when I filled out those forms, like I really do want to engage schools. I really do want to engage like nonprofit music organizations. Like I really do want to do that rollout. And I would love to have a distribution partner that wants to work with me and like, challenge me, but also like, utilize me, like I'm, I've been this film's biggest advocate from the start, and I don't want to be like, I don't want to have tentacles and everything, but I definitely want to be leveraged, and I feel like that's what's exciting for me about the film and the opportunities that it could present, long term. So, yeah.
So it sounds like, although you've been working on this thing for 6 or 7 years, that you're ready for another 2 years. That you don't seem to, be, because a lot of the filmmakers are like, when they're done with something, they're like, okay, next thing. But you're like saying, oh yeah, I'll put in the time, I'll do all the distribution stuff. So, I mean, are you trying to work on your next project at the same time as, seeing through this distribution? Are you going to stay focused on bleeding audio just until it's like all wrapped up?
I would love to do both. I haven't been just working on bleeding audio. I've been doing a lot of writing in the background, and I have three feature films in various stages of of completion, the screenplays in completion, that I would just love to actually do next. And I also feel like after working on a documentary for this long, like I'm just ready for something that's a little more grounded, a little more controlled, a little more, scheduled is what I'm looking forward to. And knowing a schedule, like I know I don't know, I know that I'd be able to support bleeding audio and distribution and be able to fit in time for my next project, for whatever it is.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about leading a sustainable career. I think you spoke to the fact that you've done some commercial directing, and then also I'm sure that you're getting some festival fees from bleeding audio, and there's kind of culling together all these things to fund development and pre-production for your next project. Can you talk a little bit about how you can lead a life where you're making art for a living?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still learning, the biggest thing for bleeding audio is I more or less sustained a full-time career throughout making bleeding audio. And that wasn't always, a healthy mental health choice, is working a very demanding day job. And then also, kind of, ushering away in the evenings and weekends. It's a lot, it's a lot to do for, a long period of time. But it was able to pay my bills. And also, I've been across in bleeding audio's lifetime, I have been at 3 different agencies. And I was able to kind of leverage the tools at those agencies to help with production. They were more than happy to grant me access to tools and resources, like cameras and stuff, to be able to film my project. And that was, incredibly generous of them. And I also, made connections with other filmmakers who were excited to support. When we went and filmed at Epitaph one day, a couple of people who I had met through work, oh my God, they were so excited. They were like, we don't care, no budget. We totally understand. We just want to be at Epitaph and just walk those halls, and that was cool. It was exciting to meet people who were excited to like collaborate. So that was a way to kind of be able to do both, do like corporate video directing by day and, be able to like be the indie film director by night. But now, I find that I do have a hunger for more creative work. And I want to see if there is a way to do that, instead of doing the, 70% corporate video work, 30% like personal work. I'd love to see if I could flip the scales, and that's something that I'm, learning and experimenting with and seeing what's possible. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer. But
I don't think anyone does.
No, I think too, though, if there's anything that bleeding audio taught me is that like your bank account should not be your budget. And you should definitely, take the time you need. And like, if you need to take a break, take a break. That was the big thing for bleeding audio for me. Was there were times where, like I remember we were just going to a barbecue and I like had a breakdown and I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. They're going to ask me about bleeding audio. I don't want to hear about it. Like, I don't want anyone to ask me how it's going because I'm just going to walk out. I'm just going to leave, And I felt like that was a moment that I realized I was like, I think I need to take some time from the project for a bit and like kind of recharge my love of it and get back to it. So I think like balance is a thing that, I don't think anyone has it perfectly in place. And it's something that you kind of got to learn for yourself over time. And I'm still learning.
So you saying over the time of Bleeding Audio, you were at 3 different agencies, but were you always a full timer, or did you have times where you were working as a freelancer as well?
There was like a 1.5 year period in that window where I was working as a freelancer. And that was the healthiest balance with Bleeding Audio that I had, actually.
Interesting.
Because I was able to dictate my time on the project. And that's something that I was never able to do as a full-timer. But also once we were in post-production, it was way easier to like allocate time after hours and on weekends. But during production, it was essential for me to go freelance, honestly.
Because, I've been a freelancer for, oh my God, I was 8 years, I guess, in a row of just freelance. And then now recently I've joined a company as a full-timer, and I'm still trying to figure out what I prefer, because there's definitely times as a freelancer where, you're starving for work, you got to pay the bills. And so you just take everything, just say yes. And then suddenly you've said yes to way more than you can do. And then you're just drowning in work. And then like your movie gets neglected. You don't have time to work on it, but like there's definitely a balance to be had. But I think sometimes as a freelancer, it was hard for me to find the balance because I was so hungry for work all the time, or like worried that I was going to miss out on work. So I'm hoping as a full timer, I can find this place of like, oh, okay, yeah, like I can schedule time for my movie throughout my job. But I don't know. It's interesting to hear that you think the freelance time was better for you.
I did find that it was another learning experience, was when I first started freelance, I, took all this time for Bleeding Audio, and, I scheduled all of these things. I said no to people. I'm like very bad about saying no to paid work. But I was like, no, this is my time. I'm working on my film. And, the scales tipped, and I was like, oh, I keep saying no because I've scheduled these things. I'm not willing to compromise on my Bleeding Audio days. And now my clients are going away, and they're finding other people. So I had to kind of swing in the opposite direction. But then once I kind of found that balance and knew, one of them was like a longer term contract that I was able to kind of schedule those days, it ended up balancing out nicely in favor of the film. But I found that, at least for my mental health with the project, like being able to fully dedicate myself to Bleeding Audio for a specific amount of time, and then be able to fully dedicate myself to the paid work, was fairer to my clients, but also a little fairer to me in the film too. Like Ron Swanson says, don't half-ass two things. Whole ass one thing, so, and that's something that I definitely had to learn the hard way a couple times.
Well, then what's the plan? You kind of alluded to this earlier, but what's the plan of attack for the next projects then? Or what have you learned in terms of workload? And I know we again said there's no such thing as balance, but that you're going to apply for the next project.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to take some time for myself. I'm kind of wrapping up this one last project, and for a full-time gig, and I'm transitioning into freelance. And my plan is to honestly take a couple of months to recharge, because I'm very burned out. I kind of feel like I'm finally at the end of this marathon race for both like my film and like working full time. And I'm I'm also very fortunate because my husband has a full-time job, and we do this thing, we call it baton passing, where like one person is the, primary provider and does the work, and the other person gets to work on the dream for a little bit. And then we sort of like switch batons back and forth.
That sounds so nice. Oh my God, please convince my entire family to baton with me.
It's very, I feel very fortunate. He's an artist also. He does painting and he does concept art. And so, it's a very nice situation, and he's a wonderful human being. But right now I'm kind of like handing the baton back. and I'm hoping to just take some time to just relearn my writing habits. Right now, I find that my writing only comes in bursts, because I'm like pent up and I just sort of like explode on the page and get everything down, and it's not very good, but at least it's on a page. And then I'll just kind of run away from it. And basically my practice over my break is I plan to like create very defined writing habits and writing times, so that when I re-enter freelance and re-enter the working, working either full time or probably freelance, I can have that habit kind of embedded in my soul again, so that I actually can, meet my goals that I have for writing. Because by the end of this year, I really do want to be in pre-production or be in development, for my next project. And I feel like, at least one of the screenplays I have, it's very achievable. Another one is maybe a little more ambitious, but has a bigger name attached to it. So it, might be able to get more support. So, it's I don't know, like I'm hoping to be able to present a slate and just, be able to get some more support. But I think right now, like just coming to the end of this road, I need to like reconnect with my creative self a little bit, and then, carry on in a way that is more sustainable than what I've been doing.
Do you think that, like, after going through this whole process of Bleeding Audio and like getting into these film festivals and winning these awards, that success is going to help you get your next film made?
I don't know. Honestly, I hope it helps, I remember, I've been essentially a director on Bleeding Audio for 6 years. And I remember trying to pitch at an old company to like direct a project instead of just produce it. And they were like, oh, well, we don't see any directing experience. And I was like, I have this feature film that I've been working on for 5 years. And they were just like, well, it's not done. Like, but okay. And so it's this, it's this thing where I just feel like the validation that it takes to get people to believe in you is just kind of hard, like, oh, okay, you have awards, but it's just one film, right? Like, it's just one, where's the other stuff that we need to see? And so I think for me, it's going to be about diversifying and just like actually taking the time to like make that short film that I wrote, 3 years ago on a weekend somewhere, and just, strengthen those muscles again. Cause I feel like my head's been so down into Bleeding Audio. And honestly, I think I forgot your question, but like my head's just been so like in the ground for Bleeding Audio that like, I just haven't had a chance to really, stretch and show other skill sets and be able to kind of prove that I can go back into scripted. Cause that's the other kind of hurdle I feel like I'm going to be dealing with is, I told people like, yeah, my next film is going to be like a narrative, a scripted feature. And they're like, oh, aren't you a documentary filmmaker? And I was like, I'm a filmmaker, So I don't know. I hope it helps, but I don't know. A lot of people have awards. A lot of people have been at these film festivals. It's competitive, So I just hope that my voice, can be heard, Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a little dark.
No, it's great. It's a very honest answer. I love it.
So
I think we need to move to our final 5 questions.
One more question before we
I knew
do it. You just mentioned that you had an actor or a name attached to one of your scripts. Can you talk about that? Like what, you probably can't say who, but how did that come about?
Basically, it's a musician, and he and I have been friends for a long time, and he and I like kind of reconnected through Bleeding Audio, and it's a story that he really wants to tell. It's a story I'm very interested in telling, and so we're kind of collaborating on this story together. And he's got a bigger following than many of the than many of my other musician friends, and because he kind of has that built-in fan base, I know that if for whatever reason we can't get a studio attached or we can't get anybody else, to like shell over the money, as much as I would hate to go back to a crowdfunding platform in my little beating heart, I know that we'd be able to engage a fan base, and I'm not trying to shit on crowdfunding. I loved it. And like, I love engaging audiences one-on-one. But I definitely feel like I might not have the constitution for another one unless I have a few other people supporting me with it. I basically did my last post-production Kickstarter on my own. And like, it was the most stressful 30 days of my life.
Yeah.
So,
well, We've all been there,
Yeah.
as you know, so I can totally relate to that. I'm definitely not excited to go back and do another crowdfunding campaign for any of my future projects. But yeah, I don't know. We talked to a lot of filmmakers, and there's some who like that's what they do. They just, they do one, and then a couple years later they do another one. A couple of years later they do another, and that's how they make their movies. And it's just like, wow. It's crazy that they're able to do that consistently, because I feel like the well dries up at some point, right?
Like you think it would, but I feel like, especially with what Seed and Spark is doing, is if you think about it, people who go and see movies are fans of whatever is on that screen. I feel like very rarely you go and see something unless you're like, oh, that has so-and-so in it. Oh, that was directed by so-and-so. And I feel like with, the democratization of all these art forms, music and film, like there's a really interesting, like one-on-one connection that you can have with your filmmakers and your musicians. And filmmakers, it's a little more foreign, I feel like, to a general audience. People don't really understand that they can actually support an independent filmmaker and like have that one-on-one connection that they would with like a musician or an artist. But I feel like it's becoming more socialized. And I think that's what Seed and Spark is actively working towards, is like getting people to become fans of independent filmmakers who can do that, who can like come back and be like, hey, I'm making another film. And people are like, I liked that last one. Let's do that again, And I hope that that's something that like, I personally can build and like other independent filmmakers can build. And if that translates to like the mainstream, that's cool. If it just translates to being able to make the art that you want to make without, someone sitting over your shoulder and having an opinion every 3 seconds, then like, that's pretty cool too, So I don't know, like I didn't mean to sound so negative on crowdfunding. I just remember, the like shakes I'd have like in the morning, like getting to my computer and like starting the day and, those final, when Kickstarter switches over from days to hours, like that is the meanest thing I think anybody has ever done.
4 days from
4 days. It's insane. It is just mean, honestly. Like for those of us with anxiety, it is so horrible. But honestly, like, I don't know. I've had a great experience connecting with people through crowdfunding. So I'm not opposed to it. I just would like it not to be the only option.
All right. Final 5 questions. What's the first film you ever made and how do you feel about it now?
I guess the first, what I would consider a film that I ever made was called We're Just Like You. It's like it was written by someone who was a teacher and a friend at my film school. It was basically about a female serial killer. And the script was originally about how she just doesn't understand how to connect with people except through murdering them. And it had all this dialogue and everything. And I'm not like a horror film person. And but I did find this idea of a woman like serial killer, but also someone who fails to connect with living people and can only connect with dead people, very interesting. And I was like challenged with making it beautiful. So I'm still proud of it because it was honestly the first time I ever explored being a director. I originally really just wanted to be an editor. And I loved the whole process, like through and through. So in a way I love it, but I also look at it and I'm like, oh, that's just not me. Like, I'm not, gory horror movie director, but yeah, sorry, it's a long answer.
No, it's great. What's the best filmmaking advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh, I could go a few different directions, but I will use this one. Everybody who you see who's successful in the film industry, the only difference between them and someone who's not successful is they didn't quit. And that to me was like not advice, but it was a one-liner that was like, oh, that's true. Because it's hard. It's really hard.
I love that. That's perfect.
Do you have a goal as a filmmaker?
Oh, it's like just vague enough of a question to really hard. I do. I have always looked up to a lot of directors. One in particular was Lynn Shelton. I thought she was an amazing director. Her passing made me cry a lot. But what I loved most about her and her films was just how she managed her career. And so really my goal is to kind of mirror that career that Lynn Shelton had built for herself, which is being a TV director and only directing the movies that she wanted to make, the ones that actually she wrote or the ones that spoke to her soul, you know? And that's my goal as a filmmaker I'd love to have directing TV be my day job. And I'd love to be able to use that job to make movies that I love and care about.
Nice. If you could go back in time, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Oh, there's so many things. Chelsea, vet your people very thoroughly. Everybody who works on your film needs to be under the same scrutiny as a job interview. And if you want to have great partnership and success with your film going forward, vet and do the research. Also, maybe hire a lawyer earlier. But that's, I guess, like what I would say is that, and just to distill it, because that sounded really dark and abysmal, but I think that investing in a lawyer to just look over paperwork and everything is worth every penny. I think every young filmmaker should know this, is that like it seems really expensive, but just 1 hour of lawyer time could end up saving you so much other time. And treating your film as a business instead of a fun side project is what will differentiate you from being like a fun hobbyist to like a career filmmaker. And that was the hardest lesson I learned. And I feel like if I had gotten that in my head sooner, Bleeding Audio could have been done a few years earlier.
Alrik asked me that question because we asked each other these questions, and my answer was contracts. So 100% there with you.
Yeah.
And also, thank you for having an answer, because we asked Dan Mervish this question, and it haunts me that he didn't have an answer. He's like, I make really great decisions all the time. And it's like, Dan Mervish. Like,
He's like, you can't go
perfect.
back in time. Like, what is that? I can't do that. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Like,
fine.
I mean, kind of fair. Like, it is one of those things where I feel like it's so much more painful to look back and be like, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. But at the same time, I feel like, especially when you're on a film for 6 years, you know, like you see those like burning pustules of regret and you know what they are, and you just wish you could go back and resolve them. So, but yeah, that would be my number one, is just like, you know, treat it like a business. Don't treat it like a fun side project.
Well, that segues us perfectly to our last question, which is making movies hard?
It's so fucking hard. So hard. The thing that I've been saying in a lot of interviews, people ask the question, what did you learn about yourself in this process? And my answer is like, I learned why people quit. Like I 100% learned that. Like it's really hard. And there are some really, really dark days that can happen when you're working on something that you love. But like the good days outweigh the dark days, 100 to 1. Like, I mean, there were days where, that feeling when you're like, oh, this is why I'm on this planet. Like there were so many of those.
I don't know that feeling. Please describe it.
Well, it was just, like interviewing people on this film, or having moments where, your conversation opened up somebody else to learning something new about themselves, or you learned something that you found interesting, and you felt like you were creating something that could either help someone or just like tell a story that you just felt needed to be told. I don't know. Like they're just those days that just at the end of the day, I just felt, I did the thing I was supposed to do today. Like this is the thing that I'm supposed to be here for. And those days were so good. And it felt so amazing. And those days outweighed the bad ones in weight, even though there were many more bad ones and there were good ones. But it was like, but I get why people quit. And I don't think it's a thing to be ashamed of, like maybe it maybe you need to quit, but like I learned that I won't quit. And I feel like that's what made me understand like that making movies is really fucking hard, but I love making them so much that like it's worth it, because the other side is pretty great too, if you can get there.
Wow. Well said. So where should we go to find out more about you? I mean, do you have a trailer for Bleeding Audio that people should watch? Do you have a Twitter account we should follow? Where should they do?
Yeah, so you can find out all the latest about Bleeding Audio on our website, www.bleeding-audio.com. We're on all the socials, Twitter at Bleeding Audio Film, Instagram. Twitter, it's bleeding_audio. On Instagram, it's Bleeding Audio Film. And then on Facebook, it's Bleeding Audio Film. And you can find our trailer. You can just find it on YouTube. You can find it on Vimeo. And we're still doing film festivals. We have a couple coming up in May. I don't know when this is going to be released, but on April 18th, we're screening in a real live theater in Melbourne, Australia. And we're going to be at the Julian Dubuque Film Festival next week, April 18th through the 25th. And I'll actually be there for in-person screenings.
Wow.
I'm so excited. Like the last movie I saw in theaters before the pandemic was mine, and the first one is going to be mine. And that feels really weird and kind of like narcissistic, but I'm a little bit excited about it.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it with an audience.
Yay!
Well, yes, congratulations on all the success. It's so amazing.
Thank you. It's been a crazy journey. So this feels really nice and validating, and it's just really humbling. It's like when you put your soul into your art, it's like they're just little horcruxes, and just like people just kind of, are watching it, and you just kind of want that energy of like an audience witnessing your art and having the conversation around it. And it's just been, it's meant a lot. So I'm very grateful and very fortunate to be where I am with this. So thanks.
Awesome. But Liz, what do you remember from our talk with Chelsea?
I remember all the stuff she told us after we stopped recording that I told her I would never tell anyone. I remember all of that.
Oh my God. Teasing people.
I say this a lot, but I love the type of filmmaker that Chelsea is. The one who, makes the film come what may, takes on different roles, figures it out within her work schedule, even if it takes several years, and is like personally connected to the subject matter. So I just thought she was like a perfect guest for what we're trying to do.
Oh, that's really sweet. She'd like to hear that. She was great. I love Chelsea. I've also been working with her for, I worked on it with her on a project in December. So I got to know her through that. And she was talking about her movie, and I was like, oh man, you got to be on the show. So it took us 5 months, and we finally did it. But yeah, the thing I remember most is burning pustules of regret. This thing that she said that I wrote down in the outline, because I was like, oh my God, that was so amazing. And she's like, you cannot name the show Burning Pustules of Regret with Chelsea Christer. Damn it, Christer. But we might do it anyways. We'll see.
We should just do it. Yeah, like we should totally ignore the fact that she said don't do it.
No, I remember just her journey. Like, I think that was really interesting to hear about, like how she came to making the documentary and like how it evolved over years. I thought that was really interesting and sort of, I think, kind of typical of documentaries. Like they don't end up what they started as, which I think is so fascinating about them. And yeah, just hearing about her plan and like what she's going for in the future and how she wants to utilize the making of the movie into making features, which it sounds like she's already doing. So that's it's really cool. So I can't wait to see what she ends up doing next, and I hope you guys get a lot of this episode because I know I enjoyed it a lot personally. But Liz, get shorty.
So you make movies, huh?
I produce feature motion pictures.
I got an idea for a movie.
This week on Get Shorty, we have a brand new short film from Leena Pendharkar called Awaken. And here's Leena to talk about the film.
Hi, my name is Leena Pendharkar, and I'm the writer and director of the short film Awaken. I made the short film Awaken to explore a mother-daughter story about caregiving and how Alzheimer's affects a daughter who is trying to help her mother. I wanted to tell this particular story because I have a family member who has Alzheimer's, and it's definitely very challenging. Awaken is about a short moment in time where Rocky, who is in her 40s, is really struggling to kind of keep her head above the water. Her job is really stressful. Her marriage is crumbling. And, she's lost her support system because her mother has Alzheimer's. She has a very brief moment with her mom where her mother remembers something from her childhood, and it's sort of like this moment of connection for the two of them. And I really wanted to explore what that's like, just to lose somebody, but to have this moment of connection. I came up with the funds for Awaken through a grant program at Loyola Marymount University, where I'm a professor. So that was really helpful. I've made independent feature films to low-budget indie features, and I'm always pushing myself to make new content and new material. And short films are a really good way for me to do that. I made Awaken to work with the actress Parminder Nagra to tell a story about Alzheimer's in the South Asian community. I think in a lot of Asian American communities, we don't talk about these issues enough. They tend to be sort of closeted and not discussed. And I think that I really, really wanted to make something where the complexities of caregiving and the difficult choices that people have to make are really explored. And in terms of my career, yes, I'm always trying to just push myself to direct new and interesting things. And I do have a feature that's based off of this short, but I really wanted to make this as a self-contained short film that told a very specific kind of story. Now that it's out in the world, well, I had, Awaken screened in a number of film festivals last year during the pandemic. And while it was a little bit difficult, it was also kind of great because the film played in online film festivals. And I do feel like it got a lot of views, and there were a lot of very interesting panels and forums that I was a part of, especially around caregiving in the Asian American community, dealing with Alzheimer's or care of an elder one, and being on those panels and really getting to talk about the issues during COVID-19 was really, really meaningful for me. It was a really great experience. And I'm really excited to now distribute it online so that other people can come and watch it and share it and discuss what the film is about. I think in the edit, I did, in terms of Awaken and what I might do differently, I don't know if I would do anything differently. I did the best that I could. And I think that in the edit, there were some changes that I made, but I'm really proud of the performances that we were able to get. Working with Parminder Nagra was just such an amazing experience. She's really quite the legendary actress. And I'm really, and working with V. Kumari and Seamus Deaver and all the other actors and cast and crew, I was proud of what we got and really felt excited to put it out there. So thank you.
So, this was a really interesting one for me. I watched it twice. I watched it when I first was sent it a month ago, and then I watched it again today. And, I thought it was shot really well. The production value was very high. And I guess one of the things that struck me about it is it's so heavy. It's so just dramatic and emotional. Like every moment in that movie from the start to the end. And even when she doesn't even know about her mother having these issues at the nursing home, and she's just giving her presentation before she gets the call, even that little part is so heavy. It's they're act with every inch of your person and all the energy in. And it's nothing is light, nothing is status quo about it. It's all so weighted, and it's man, ease up on the gas there a little bit on the drama. I guess it's sort of how I felt. I also didn't really feel that it seemed weird that the son and the husband left when the mother came for one night. I thought maybe this has happened before, maybe it hasn't, but I feel the instant reaction for the husband to we're going to my brother's house, you're on your own with this, seemed a little cold and a little really. And my mom took care of her mom, my grandmother, when she was sick, and it was different. It's my grandpa had something that was like dementia, and then my grandma had like arthritis, like severe arthritis. So it was like two different separate issues, but similar kinds of things. So yeah, and my dad was there the whole time, and he never was like, I'm gonna go get a hotel room. Anyways, but whatever, that's fine. And then I didn't find it really believable at all that she found her mom so easily at the end. Like she like was gone for hours, and they didn't necessarily seem like they lived close to the beach. And we see her in a couple different places, and then we finally see her at the beach, and she just finds her mom. It's like after losing people, like losing a cat, or like not knowing where someone is. It's like even like trying to find someone like an animal after a block, or a person after like 6 blocks or something would be hard, not let alone however long that was. So that just seemed a little unbelievable to me. But yeah, I mean, again, I don't know. I think it was over the top drama wise. And those parts didn't land with me. But, and I also thought the ending where the sister called, but she didn't pick up, was like, they made it seem like the world was ending. With the music and the weight, it was like, whoa. Like, and I listened to what she had said, and she she was going for trying to make it like a thriller, and trying to make it like really like this, like not just a drama, but more like a genre film. And so I can see where that was coming from, but in the end, it just felt like, that didn't land with me so well. Anyway, I don't know. So yeah, not the biggest fan, unfortunately, of this one. Sorry.
Well, let's talk about this. So I know Leena. I don't know her very well, but I know of her, and she's very sweet and smart and a great filmmaker. When I saw the short, I was like, oh, it didn't work for me, but I thought, oh, you know what does work as a proof of concept. If these are just snippets of a larger project that she's trying to get off the ground, then this does make sense, because nothing is solved. There's no catharsis. There's a lot of background information missing. Whatever's happening with the sister is never really kind of illustrated outside of these phone calls. It's like there's a lot of things that this short is stripped of. And at first I was like really trying to make it work as a short, and I was like, okay, this seems like an experiment in not giving the audience what they want. That's really interesting. I actually kind of respect that. Like, in no way did you give the audience what they wanted the entire time. That's an experiment. Anyway, that's cool. But then I thought, no, it must be a proof of concept, because we don't know anything about the tie to the ocean other than that story. Why would she go back to the nursing home when the nursing home was the core of all the problems? Are we basically saying that the main character is just going to walk away from her mother? Like, I don't know what it all means. And I think, I can't tell if it's purposeful or not. I think that's what I keep saying over and over again, Alrik, that I just am afraid of saying. Is it? Does she say anything about that in the video?
I think she was talking about how she was intending this to be a short from the beginning, and like she'd already made features before, and so this to her was always going to be a short, and she wanted to capture this feeling because she had gone through or witnessed this sort of situation through a loved one. So she was like just trying to capture those feelings in that story, and then she wanted to make it more like a thriller and more of a genre piece and less of a straight up drama. That's the two things I remember.
Well, it very much felt like a drama to me.
Yeah. And
that shot of the profile of our main character crying when she's on the beach is so beautiful, and it's so polished. So just like you, I think it's shot extremely well. It's designed well. It looks gorgeous. But for me, I need more answers. Like, as an audience member, I just need more answers. I'm not every audience member, right? I'm sure there are many people who would see this and be like, I get it. I went through this. I know what she's going through. But I've never gone through anything like this. So I feel like there's a big block between me and knowing what the protagonist is thinking. And I have no idea where she is mentally or emotionally throughout the entire short.
Yeah.
Except for in that moment on the beach when she cries.
It's so, it's so like it's so heavy, and she's so like stoic.
Stoic.
Oh yeah, exactly. The whole time, it's like you can't really read to how she's feeling, and she doesn't really like when her husband decides to leave. It's not like, oh, why are you doing this? It's more like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I respect that, and it just there wasn't a lot of conflict, around besides just trying to find the mom, and then trying to deal with the mom. So that was, I think, maybe what was missing partly.
Well, the log line, I wrote it down. A poised executive puts her career and family on the line as she struggles with responsibilities toward her mother's progressing dementia. And I just didn't think she was putting anything on the line.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like her family was at risk. It didn't feel like her job was at risk. So, and that's fine. But I honestly feel like this is a bigger story than what we saw. And I think maybe Leena is just too good of a storyteller to do this format. She's too ingrained in the feature world to really revert to a short, because this just feels like it's a taste of something much bigger. Yeah,
I mean, I guess if she had left the meeting in the middle, or was halfway through her presentation and then just stopped, maybe then that would be different, that would be.
Or if work was calling her when she was looking for her mom and being like, you better get back here soon, or something like that, right?
Right.
But she seems to have a lot of power and control, and it didn't seem like anything was the risk. And it's like her husband disappears for the rest of the film. So
the only thing that she did,
that
was she didn't have drinks with that guy, but it didn't seem to be a big deal. It was like, it's not like this is gonna make or break you. It was just like, oh, you're not gonna go to drinks after your presentation with this person who may or may not be a potential investor. But that was never clear.
What a tragic image, though, of that mother watching the ocean on a screen indoors.
Yeah.
That is oh, my God.
Well, I was wondering, what was that, where did that come from? Did she bring that video of the ocean to them so, her mother could watch it? Or was it always there and they didn't have it before?
I would assume that it didn't have anything to do with her, because there was another guy watching the video, right? It wasn't just for her mom.
Right.
It felt like it was programming for the, I don't know what you call that, the senior center, the caretaking facility. I don't know what the appropriate word is.
I guess if it's supposed to have been that it was always there, then I wonder why didn't she just go into that room in the first place and just be calmed by the beach? Or did she need to be out to have that moment? I don't know. I guess there's lots of questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think if there was some change in the character, I think that's probably what we're getting at, is there was no change in the lead character from the beginning to the end of the movie, and if there was a rough sister relationship in the beginning, and then going through this experience with her mom made her try to connect with her sister more, then that could be a little bit of a fulfilling ending. But instead it was oh no, ignore, or whatever. It's oh, you called back too late. It's okay, well, all right. Well, I guess we didn't get that. Anyways, I want to hear what other people think. Are we way off base?
Wait.
Sure.
Before we cap it off, I just want to say one thing, which is, I said earlier the phrase, she wasn't giving the audience what it wanted, over and over again. But I want to say what a conventional Hollywood audience expects is she didn't give what a conventional Hollywood audience would expect from a short.
Right.
I want to say that there's different ways to tell stories, and yes, this didn't follow the character learned something or changed arc, and that is unconventional, and so therefore it's frustrating for us. But I think there is a world where a short like this would land. It just wouldn't be a conventional Hollywood audience that it would land with.
Yeah, I guess just to speak to that a little bit and play devil's advocate, maybe I think if it wasn't so produced in a way that a Hollywood movie is, if it didn't have the heavy music, it didn't have the polish, and it had this kind of storyline, then maybe it would feel more fulfilling and you wouldn't be scratching your head as much. But since the music is queuing you up to feel emotion, or to feel this sort of thing that you're not getting necessarily, then maybe that's the disconnect.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
But I don't know.
Leena, respond to us. Like, send a video back and let us know what you think.
I mean,
or that you hate
I'm not saying it's not a well-made movie. It's just, certain things, didn't work for me. Anyways, thanks so much for sharing. And people, I want to hear what you guys think of this movie. Like, are we, like I was saying earlier, are we completely way off base? Does this work in a way that we're not seeing? Let us know. We'd love to hear. But yeah, I think it's time for
You've got mail. You have it.
I do have it.
My breath catches in my chest until I hear 3 little words. You got mail.
We skipped You Got Mail last week so we could complain and whine about filmmaking, which was really fun, and I enjoyed it. But we're back to talk about our good friend Gary Kennedy, because that's the only person who seems to want to give YouTube comments. It's fine. We love Gary. It's great. So on our episode with Andrew Carlberg, Gary Kennedy says, the opening gas station scene in A Senseless Act was shot and lit so well. It's amazing what some haze can do to really bring out some texture and depth. I thought the Senseless Act was going to be the guy walking over to the Nissan Sentra and beating him to death. Once he said gangbanger, I just nodded to myself and said, oh, it's one of those. I love this guy. The 480p threw me off a bit too, but I guess back in 07, things were still being shot on tape. Amazing. Then on our episode with Jim McGowan, Gary says, I can't find the short mirror site anywhere, but hopefully it'll pop up, and aren't you too fancy for dropping 2 episodes in a week? I gave him the link to the short, and then he said, I didn't understand the short one bit, yet it completely kept my attention, and I'm fine with that. Such a well-produced and polished short. So I'm starting to get the feeling that Gary listens to this show just to find new short films to watch and nothing else. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Sure. But I'm also wanted to ask you, Liz, do you think we should also read Twitter comments? Are people saying interesting things on Twitter that we're not reading? Because I don't really go on Twitter.
No, but that's my fault. That's entirely my fault. All I do is log into our Twitter account, announce that we have a new episode, and then I leave. Like, I know that, like, the thing I'm supposed to do is, like, name a movie involving air vents. And then we were supposed to get like 30 responses about air vents. And that's audience building. That's engagement. So no, we have no real Twitter engagement. I also never follow anyone back when they follow us.
Oh, you should.
I mean, there's a lot of things that are problematic about the way I run our social media.
I'm saying you should when I easily could, too. I have access on this thing called a phone right here. I just don't do it. By the way, 2 movies that came to mind with air vents, Die Hard and Aliens. So, both winners.
I'm thinking that yes, 100,000 million times percent, absolutely. I'm also thinking of, like, there's a comedy with, like, I think it's like Rob Schneider, like, climbing through an air vent.
He climbs through an air vent in Judge Dredd. That's a fact.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Which is also very good.
Yeah, so maybe I will do this air vent.
I love it, man.
And just see what people say.
There's so many air vent movies that you can like, mention air vent moments. I mean, I'm just gonna go to a Simpsons episode, the one where Bart's dog gets stuck in the air vent, and then Willie has to go get it and get greased up. Another great air vent moment, not from a movie.
I don't remember that, and I've seen almost every single episode of The Simpsons, so that's probably why I don't remember.
That one's it's like
filled
way back. It's like season 6 or something. 5 maybe.
Oh, well, it's in prime spot. That's like the good years.
Yeah, the only ones I watch over and over again. But if you want to be like Gary Kennedy, you can jump over to our YouTube page, and you could take his throne. You could take the Gary Kennedy throne, and then we could be reading your comments every week instead of Gary's. And then what? Then what would happen? I don't know. I wonder how much Gary enjoys this part of the show. If he just likes us hearing his name over and over again, or if he doesn't care. But I don't know. You could be the next Gary Kennedy. All you have to do is type into YouTube. Done. We actually now have 222 subscribers on YouTube.
Woo!
Raise the roof. Can't wait till 250. That's going to be great. You can also support the show on Patreon. www.com. Who would go to www.com? What a silly thing. Patreon.com/MMIH podcast and give what you can. Thank you guys in advance. If you want, you can also send us a question, comment, or suggestion to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. We've gotten things like, get shorty suggestions and, pushes. What's the word?
Promotions?
Yeah, suggestions for people to come on the show. We haven't gotten a real, actual question in, I don't know.
Oh, it's been a while. That actually was a thing. You're right. People used to ask questions.
We get 2 a month maybe, or 1 a month. Now we get 0.
Yeah.
So I guess we answered all the questions already. That's great. You can also, if you really like the show, you could go leave a review for us on iTunes, which happened in April, which was amazing. Hopefully it'll happen in May. We'll see. You can also leave reviews on other places too, I think. Maybe Stitcher. I'm not sure. Anyways, finally, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at MMIH Podcast, and YouTube at Making Movies is Hard Podcast.
I just really enjoy how we just evolve in this phase of the show. This is the segment of probably old school Making Movies is Hard, where we just say whatever comes to mind, which I enjoy. No, it works. Okay, thank you to everyone for listening. Thanks to Chelsea Christer for coming on the show, and for Ryan Davis from Smart House Creative for connecting us with Leena Pendharkar. Check out our website, makingmoviesishard.com, where you can find links to all the things we talked about on this episode, but do that in 6 months because it's not there right now. Thanks to editor Cameron for doing the editing. Thank you, Cameron. And thanks to everyone for listening and watching. Oh, thanks to Lucas Colshaw for the art. And talk to all y'all next week.
Leena Pendharkar. Pendharkar, maybe. I don't know. Man, should I say Leena's name again? How do you say it? Say it the right way. And then, so Cameron, I'm gonna make you do this, dude. I'm gonna just stick it to you because I know you're editing. I'm gonna ask you to edit this. Just drop this in over what I said earlier. Leena Pendharkar. Leena Pendharkar. Just drop that in.